Okay, it's 9:03 and I'll call this meeting to order. Aloha, mai kako. Good morning, everyone. This is the January 9th, 2025 Land Use Committee meeting. This is a hybrid meeting, which is physically located at the Leilopapa a Kamehameha State Office Tower at 235 South Baratania Street, room 406, Honolulu, 96813. And this meeting is open to the public. Court reporting transcriptions are being done from a Zoom recording, which is in progress today. All meeting participants, I'd like to stress the importance of speaking slowly, clearly, and directly into your microphone. And before speaking each time, please state your name and identify yourself for the record. This is a hybrid meeting, and please be aware that all meeting participants are being recorded on the digital record of the Zoom meeting, which will be posted to YouTube and used for court reporting purposes. Your continued participation is your implied consent to be part of the public record of this event. If you do not wish to be part of the public record, you should exit the meeting now. Also share with all participants that we'll be taking breaks from time to time, nominally 5 minutes or so every hour. And if the meeting extends through the lunch hour, we'll take a longer break for lunch. My name is Dan Giovanni, and I have the pleasure to serve as the LUC chair. And we currently have 9 seated commissioners. So along with me today in the room are Michael Yamani. Commissioner Yamani is from Kauai, Commissioner Nancy Carr-Smith, and Commissioner Miles Miyasoto from Hawaii Island. Commissioner Bruce U'u is from the island of Maui. Commissioner Mel Kahele and Commissioner Brian Lee and Commissioner Ken Hayashida from Oahu. And Commissioner Kamakela Ohelo is also from Oahu, but he's joining us today by Zoom. So Commissioner Kamakela Ohelo, can you confirm where you are located and that you are alone at that location?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm tuning in from 1660 South Baratania Street, the parking lot of Central Union Church. And I'm, in fact, in my vehicle alone, attending the hearing. Mahalo.
Thank you for joining us. Also in attendance today is the LUC Executive Officer, Daniel Orendenker, LUC Chief Planner, Scott Derrickson, LUC Staff Planner, Martina Segura, LUC Chief Clerk, Ariana Kwan, and LUC Deputy Attorney General, Melissa Goldman. Again, court reporting transcriptions are being done by the Zoom recording. At this time, I'd like to make an announcement regarding today's agenda. Unfortunately, we will be withdrawing 3 items that were agendized due to an Office of Information Practices complaint that the agenda did not include sufficient details required for sunshine law. So let me go through what I understand is the situation. These agenda items are the following. Agenda item 8B, legislative measures proposed by the administration that impact the LUC. So this item 8B was the complaint. It did not provide the public with enough information to understand specifically what bills the board intended to discuss. And therefore discussion of those bills would likely violate the sunshine law. So I understand that as of today, bills are starting to flow in with specific House and Senate bill numbers on them. So let me say that if we, in fact, we're going to be able to put this on our agenda for January 22nd, let me advise my fellow commissioners that if there's any bill and or the staff, if there's any specific bill that addresses interest to the Land Use Commission for which you'd like to have it agendized for the January 22nd meeting, we need to identify what that bill is and by number and provide that to Ariana, preferably by end of today. Is that correct? By the end of today, if possible. The second item that we will be removing from the agenda is an update on the OPSD soil study. This item used the acronym OPSD, which was not defined in the notice for the meeting. So we will reschedule that for the next meeting, and we will explicitly clarify that OPSD is the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. I think it's the only thing we need to correct for that one. Is that correct? I'm going to ask you to comment in a second, Melissa. And the third item is the proposed 2023 administrative rules amendments. And the complaint was that item 8E does not provide the public with enough information to understand what proposed rule amendments the board intends to discuss, and therefore discussion of those proposed rule amendments would likely violate the Sunshine Law. As I understand, we weren't going to discuss any specific proposed rule amendments, but nonetheless, the agenda did not clarify that sufficiently, so we'll have to clean that up. So we will be postponing these three agenda items to the next LUC meeting. So the process by which these were removed, the complaint was received, it was referred to the Deputy Attorney General, who reviewed the complaint and advised the chair that we should remove these items at this time and reschedule them for the January 22nd meeting. So let me ask if you don't mind, Ms. Goldman, if you would clarify anything on that matter that I may not have gotten correctly or add to it.
Thank you, Chair. I think you covered everything sufficiently, just so that the commissioners are aware. This is not entirely unusual. These things happen from time to time, and we'll simply re-agendize the items with a more detailed title on the next meeting's agenda. So it should be nothing to worry about.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll move on to our seventh order of business, which is a discussion with Ms. Ann Lopez, our Attorney General for the state of Hawaii. Welcome, Ms. Lopez. And including the purpose is to a discussion and clarification of legal roles and responsibilities of the Land Use Commission staff, its commissioners, its LUC chairperson, and the Deputy Attorney Generals who advise the LUC. Let me just also welcome Mr. James Tokioka, who is the Director of DBEDT, and thank you very much, both of you, for making the time in your schedule for being here today. As you probably can appreciate, we have a relatively young commission. Several of us have only been on the commission for less than a year, and so I think that the importance and timeliness of what you have to share with us today would be very much appreciated by all of us. So let me turn it over to you and ask, well, wait a minute. First, I have to ask if there's any public testimony on this agenda item. Ms. Kwan, have we received any written testimony?
No, Mr. Chair.
Is there anyone who signed up either on Zoom or in the room that would like to testify publicly?
If anyone on the Zoom would like to testify on this matter, please use the Q&A feature now. I have Ken Church on the Zoom who would like to provide testimony on item 7, and we'll go to 8E later when we're on that item.
Pardon me, not on this item, but on 8.
Both. He wants
Both.
7 and
Okay,
8E.
so on
but
this item, would you promote him to be
Mr.
sworn
Church,
in?
I'll promote you now to be a panelist to share your testimony. Mr. Church, can you give us a mic check?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Can we have a visual on him?
Are you able to turn on your camera at this time?
No, I have limited data transfer, so I can't activate both at the same time.
Okay.
Okay, we'll proceed with the verbal only. So Mr. Church, do you swear the testimony you give today will be the truth?
Yes.
Could you repeat that, please?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So you'll have 2 minutes to please provide your testimony.
Because my testimony is linked to both the AG and the item 8E.
I'm sorry, I don't think we can clearly understand him. Is there anything you could do on your end, Mr. Church, to improve the quality of your communication?
Well, I can't do anything more than I have right now. Can you hear me better now?
I think if you speak loudly and very slowly, it helps.
Okay, my testimony is regarding both 7 and 8E and their link. So in order not to be repetitive, I would ask to give that testimony as simply 4 minutes at the end of 8E.
At the end of 8E.
Correct.
Mr. Church, 8E has been removed from the agenda today and rescheduled for January 22nd.
Okay,
So if you have comments only on item 7, which is a discussion of LUC roles, you can give it now for 2 minutes.
so again, I would ask that I be allowed to speak after Lopez makes her statement so that I am not making statements that conflict directly with her.
So there is a second opportunity for public testimony at the end of this presentation, and I'll call on you back then.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yep, stand by.
So I'm gonna put him back as an attendee
Put
for
him back
now
as an
and then
attendee for now.
re-promote him. Okay?
We'll re-promote him later.
All right, one moment.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we will continue now. Yes, so, for me. So, if there's no other public testimony, I think that there is best if we go into executive session at this time, if there's no.
Yes.
Can you give it to me? Since I'll be making the motion myself. No.
Chair,
There it is.
Chair Giovanni, can I make a comment based on Mr. Church's request?
Yes,
Since we are going into executive session, and he said he wanted to speak after Attorney General Lopez spoke, he may not want to hang around because he's not going to be able to get any of her testimony in the executive session anyway. So I just offered that in case we're here for an hour or however long.
yeah, he'll have to wait.
Thank you.
So I have it pursuant. So it's pursuant to section, put on my glasses. Pursuant to section 92-5A4 HRS, the commission is going into executive session in order to consult with its attorneys on questions and issues pertaining to the commission's powers, duties, privileges, and immunities and liabilities. Do I have a second to this motion? Seconded by Mr. Commissioner Yamane. Since this is the first vote of the day, Executive Director, we do roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion is to go into executive session. Chair Giovanni,
Aye.
Vice Chair Yamane,
Aye.
Commissioner Ishida,
Aye.
Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Kahele,
Aye.
Commissioner Miyasato.
Aye.
Commissioner Uu,
Aye.
Commissioner Carter Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Kamakeo Hello.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And let me also, since this will directly, discussion impact the LUC staff, I'd also like to invite the staff to remain in the exec session. Yeah, and explicitly Mr. Tokioka and of course, Ms. Lopez. So. Will you close the doors, please? Okay, 12:05, we're back in regular session. And so first I'd like to again thank the Attorney General for being with us all morning and being so helpful in commenting upon a lot of detail in terms of our legal questions regarding the respective operations and our respective roles as part of this commission. And so thank you very much for that.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes, and so for the record, it was a good discussion on a point-by-point basis on the respective roles of the commissioners and staff and those who advise us, and including the Attorney General's office and the two deputy attorney generals that report to us. And I think it was particularly valuable in view of the fact that we all come to this commission as volunteers to sit here, but we come from different perspectives and we come in different timelines. So some of us are relatively new and some of us have been here a while. So I think it really was useful in just balancing the scales and getting us all in the same place. So appreciate that very much.
Excellent. And I'm happy to return anytime you ask.
So hopefully I've represented what happened correctly. And if you have anything to add, let me know.
You have, and I have nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to take one more round of public testimony on this agenda item. If you could stay with us for that, I appreciate it. So, Ariana, do we have anybody that wishing to give public testimony at this time?
Yes, we have Ken Church on the Zoom. I'm going to promote him to panelist now.
Please do.
Is my
Mr.
volume,
Church, can
my
I get a
vo-
mic check?
is my volume any better now?
Yes, but please speak slowly and loudly and clearly into the microphone. And Mr. Church, let me remind you that I swore you in earlier and you're still under oath. And now you have 2 minutes to make your public comments about our seventh agenda item.
Yeah, so slowly and 2 minutes might not work, but I'll try. My testimony is in regards to agenda item 7. It's that the LUC's AG representative has recently filed a brief with Hawaii Supreme Court in regards to petition DR 2173, where she cited HRS 9110.5 laws, which are the preponderance of evidence clause. And she states in that filing with the Supreme Court that it doesn't apply to a declaratory order for a petition that was administered by a panel of commissioners at one of its regular meetings versus a contested case hearing. This is contradictory to the LUC's position at a 2021 meeting where this panel administered my petition, DR 2172, and the panel cited that law as applicable, and it was again cited in the LUC's declaratory order as a supporting conclusion of law that was the foundation of the panel's denial of my petition. The AG has taken a position in DR 2173, which directly contradicts the LUC's conclusions in law in my case. The AG is representing the LUC also in the appeal court for my case. It is impossible for both to be correct, and I ask this panel to cause the AG to clarify this matter. I also advise this panel that the AG's filings in regard to my court appeal, your denial of my petition, AG repeatedly signed false and filed false, several untrue certificates of service. I advised the AG of her error, and they did not correct it. In the case of the AG's filings of untrue certificates of service, I ask this panel to cause the AG to take corrective action. Both of these matters are serious. The panel should be concerned, take corrective action. That concludes my testimony.
Thank you very much, Mr. Church. Let me stay on behalf of the commission that we cannot offer comment or on ongoing litigation. But I will also ask the Attorney General if she wishes to comment at this time.
Mr. Church, please make all of your arguments in your briefing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Church. You're excused. Do we have anybody else that wishes to testify, Ariana?
Seeing none in the Q&A feature, I'm gonna put Mr. Church back to attendee.
Thank you. So that concludes the agenda item for which we invited you and you were so gracious to attend. Thank you very much. We're still in session and let me advise the public that we have decided not to break for lunch and we're going to power through for the rest of the agenda. So our eighth agenda item is Agenda 8A, the status update on the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism's proposed 2025 budget as it relates to LUC. So first I'll invite public testimony. Ariana, was there any written testimony on this agenda item?
We received no written testimony on this item.
Is there any public witness that has indicated they wish to testify at this time?
If anyone on the Zoom is interested in giving oral testimony, please use the Q&A feature now. Seeing none, Chair.
Thank you. So Mr. Executive Officer Dan Orndenker, please introduce your comments on the budget from the Department of Business and Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The budget that was submitted to the Department of Budget and Finance and the governor's final decisions were contained in the board packet. As you can see, The personnel costs were static, except for one item, which was the land use development coordinator, which was eliminated from the budget, although the position still remains. The position was not eliminated, but the funding was.
That's Mr. Wong.
That is Mr. Wong, that is correct. The total personnel budget is $673, $673.416. If the governor's decision stands, our budget will be reduced by $93,228, which makes the total personnel budget $580,188. Our total operating OCE expenses are listed on the subsequent page. Those add up to $197,227. Our total budget is 707, as approved by the governor, our total budget is $777,415. I'm sorry, I misstated that. It's $786,415.
Say it again one more time.
$786,415. Our original proposal was for a budget of $870,643. That's a difference of $93,228, which is the one position salary that was removed from the budget. And if there are any questions?
Is there any breakdown on the other costs?
Yes, it's contained in the packet. And you can see that they're all under BD 103DA, and all the breakouts are contained under different object codes, such as copy machine paper, computer papers, travel, postage, telephone and telegraphs.
So what is the amount in the travel budget? This is
There are several different aspects to the travel budget. I don't have that broken out right now, but we have transportation intrastate at $6,200. Transportation intrastate for non-employees, which would be the commissioners, which is $43,772. Subsistence allowance, same for staff, it's $13,901, and for commissioners is $18,200. There's other couple of our line items that are for all other expenses, $9,100 for out of state and for staff, and $7,800 for non-employee out of state. Subsistence allowance for out of state non-employees is $1,300 in both line items.
I think that's good. I just wanted to emphasize that the cost of us attending these meetings at its various locations is explicitly part of the transportation budget, as well as a separate line item for out-of-state travel.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. And in those years that I was referring to, when we had back-to-back hearings, we are allowed to move the out-of-state budget into the in-state budget so that we can cover all of our hearing expenses.
Okay. Anything further you want to put on the record?
Yeah, there's one other thing that associated with the budget, but it's not anything that impacts the dollar amount. And that is that the Office of Sustainable Planning and Sustainable Development has requested that we be given a separate line item in the budget rather than being part of OPSD. This is the way it was before, about 3-4 years ago, and they want to reinstate that. It doesn't impact the actual dollar amount that we're asking for, but it is a restructuring of the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development.
And what is the plan for you to recover costs for the approved position that has no funding.
Um, with this commission's permission, I would like to be able to discuss that with the various finance committees at the legislature to see if we can get the money reinstated.
Do I have a motion from a commissioner to approve the executive director interfacing with the respective finance committee chairmans at the legislatures for conversations to seek return of funding?
I make a motion.
Second.
To update on budget, I don't think we should be voting on anything.
On the advice of council, we will not be taking a vote on this. Do we have to agendize that for January 22nd? Okay, so let me request an agenda item for January 22nd, which would be to authorize the executive director to interface with the legislature to pursue reinstatement of funding for that position. So be it. I don't need a vote on that, right?
I
Okay.
got a question. Is the funding currently is gonna be able to keep him employed?
This budget doesn't,
Goes
the
to
the
June?
proposed budget doesn't take effect until July
July.
1.
Oh, July. Okay, all right, thank you.
So we got a little time to fight for it.
Chair,
Okay,
I have a question.
wait a minute. Just want to give them sure, is there anything else you want to put on the record? Okay, so now we'll have commissioners for questions. You want to go first? Commissioner Lee?
Thank you, Chair. Question for Mr. Orodenker. Line 035, subsistence allowance, non-employee, is that like lunch for today type thing? That would be what that category would cover?
That's part of that category. It's also, for when we travel, and
That
you
would
get your
be-
per diem.
But that would be out of state, right? The intrastate, this one is just, it doesn't say intra or inter.
Yeah, when we travel.
Yeah, but there's an intrastate subsistence that's a separate line item.
I have questioned our ASO several times on why those items aren't rolled up into one, but his advice to me was, well, I'm not sure, but if, once you let that line item go, you'll have a lot of trouble getting it back. So we've left it all
Okay.
these years.
All right. And then going to out-of-state conferences, that's part of interstate travel, right? Interstate transportation. Would that be under that category?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Who else down? Oh, Commissioner Carsmith.
Just a comment, when you officially bring this item to us for a vote on the 22nd, are you going to be specific about what it is you're proposing?
It's my understanding that what I'm bringing to the commission for vote is authorization to lobby to reinstate the position. The budget has already been up to the governor's office and approved. I mean, as I mentioned, the budget preparation process is, in our case, is very simple. We have a base budget, personnel and operating expenses, and that gets rolled over from year to year. So we usually, except for the years when we wanted to add positions, we usually don't have any input into the budget. It just happens.
I guess I was a little surprised that you would need our permission to do that.
Well, I want to make sure, given the discussions that were had, that the commission is all on board with what I'm going to attempt to accomplish. I would like to point out one other thing, though, as we're having this discussion.
Wait a minute. I think that Mr. Carsmith raised the question that's in all of our mind. Why did we, and it was the AG that basically specified, because it was not agendized, that we would be considering asking him to lobby on our behalf. We couldn't vote on it or give him a green light. Is that correct?
Yes.
It's a yes. So does that answer your question? Or you want to
Yeah,
follow
I
up?
mean, my only comment is that when we're asked to vote on things, I just think as much information as we can have is better.
Yeah, so when you bring it to us on January 22nd, you tell us who it is, tell us what he does, tell us what you want to, how much money you want to pay him. So, and then we'll support it. So when you go to legislature, you'll have the strength that the commission, hopefully 9-0, but we'll see what happens, supported it. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Okay, one other comment that I wanted to make before we leave this agenda item is that, the OCE budget, is treated,
Don't hear acronyms.
okay, operating expenses budget, not the personnel budget, is treated a little bit differently by BNF.
By who?
Budget and finance.
Okay.
Sorry, spend too much time in the state, you start talking. I mean, I call my
Different
wife
language.
LMO, you know, so.
Yeah, OIP,
Yeah.
OPSD.
Is treated a little bit differently. That's considered basically a lump sum, and you're able to move monies around in that lump sum.
Really?
To cover your expenses. That's, as I mentioned, that's how we were able to cover the back-to-back hearings 10 years ago. With the travel, because all of those hearings were in Neighbor Island. And if we couldn't have moved money out of the interstate travel budget, we could not have covered those hearings, and vice versa. If we have overages, in the overall amount of our expenditures, we use them to do things like buy these microphones. You know, so.
Very good. Any further questions on this agenda item? Okay, thank you. So now we'll consider a second round of public testimony. Ms. Kwan, is there anybody that's indicated at this point in time that they want to testify?
Nobody's used the Q&A feature to indicate they want to provide oral testimony on this item.
Okay, this item is closed, and we'll move on to item 8C, which is an update on Yes in My Backyard, or the acronym YIMBY, working group participation. Ms. Kwan, has there been any written testimony on this matter?
No, Mr. Chair.
Is there anybody who wants to provide public testimony on this matter?
If anyone on the Zoom would like to provide oral testimony on this item, please use the Q&A feature now. Seeing none, Chair.
Thank you. At this time, I'll call on Chief Planner Scott Derrickson to proceed with a presentation regarding this item.
Aloha kako. I'm Scott Derrickson, Chief Planner, State Land Use Commission. I hope you've had an opportunity, because it's posted on the website and it was part of the commission packet, to take a look at some of the links to the Yes in My Backyard, or the acronym that we'll be using is YIMBY. In 2022, the legislature passed Act 305. Its purpose was aimed to increase housing availability by reducing administrative barriers and encouraging adoption of more flexible zoning and regulatory policies. That group was co-chaired by the Hawaii Housing Finance Development Corporation, HHFDC, and the Hawaii Public Housing Authority, HPHA. So they were co-chairs, and they have to submit reports to the legislature yearly. 2023, they submitted a report to the legislature, early interim report, and then this session, they have a 2024 report. Both those are linked on our website. You can take a look at them as you wish. The act specifies that the Land Use Commission executive officer or the designee is a representative on this task force. I've been to 3 of the 4 meetings. Martina Segura, staff planner, has also attended at least one of those meetings with me. The agencies that are represented on this task force are essentially the same ones that are on the governor's, were on the governor's emergency proclamation working group. The role that the staff has is to provide our expertise on land use, particularly with respect to chapter 205. And the regulatory system. We're not there to propose policy or legislation. We reflect that the fact that the LUC is not a policy-making body. We're a regulatory body. We are there not to set policy. Some of those other agencies are there in those roles. In 2022, we had 2 meetings. They identified infrastructure as the primary barrier to housing development that had the biggest opportunity for near-term impact. 2023, HHFDC, again, I'm going to use the acronym, but Hawaii Housing Finance Development Corporation, they commissioned a study to identify what type of infrastructure was needed that would be most impactful in each county. And there's a report on that, dated November 2nd, 2023. Actually, a very interesting study. I think it's worth checking out for those of you who have expressed real concern about affordable housing availability and what some of the issues are surrounding it. The latest meeting was on October 17th, 2024. At that time, the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, OPSD, provided an update on their pro-housing study grant. And forgive me, I don't recall what the PRO stands for exactly. Pathways to removing obstacles in housing. The YIMBY group at that time met. They were identifying more barriers and they were discussing what options and brainstorming what possible things they could do. Some potential legislation was discussed by HHFDC and OPSD, Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, that they were going to put forward as part of the admin package, the governor's admin package. At this time, there was no written summary notes from the working group that's been provided to the members. That's all I have to report at this point. If anyone has any specific questions, go ahead, please. I'm available.
Thank you, Mr. Derrickson. That was useful. And again, the links are in the reports they tie to are very helpful. Commissioners, any questions, comments for Mr. Derrickson?
Commissioner Hayashida. Scott, is there anything that you're seeing that legislatively that we have to react to or they're proposing that impact us?
So there was a bill that was part of the administrative package that was agendized that has been removed from the agenda that will come up. So hopefully at our next meeting, we will be able to agendize that. And prior to the meeting, you guys will have the opportunity to take a look at it. So you will be able to come to the meeting prepared to discuss it if that's your.
So is it tied in any way to YIMBY?
It's tied in so much as one or more agencies are kind of the behind sponsoring the bill. Yes.
And my question is, if in the context of what you're doing as part of the YIMBY working group, you've become familiar with that bill, at a minimum, you could inform us today, kind of high level, what it's about. I think that's what Commissioner Hayashida would like to know.
Yeah, actually, I can't because that draft of the bill was plunked down before the.
Was what? Plucked out?
I say plunked down. It was provided during the meeting So there was no opportunity prior to that to review it, to take a look at it.
What's the status of it today?
I believe that a form of that draft language is now part of an admin bill that's being put forward.
Okay, so your expectation is that prior to our meeting on July 22, there'll be clarity on this bill. And we'll be able to review that in advance of the meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Other questions for Mr. Derrickson? Okay, Ms. Kwan, is there any additional? Who had a
Sorry.
question? Oh, you did? My
Um,
apologies, I didn't see it.
No problem. I believe there's a more recent report from that October meeting. A couple people shared it with me. It wasn't in the group. I'm sending it to Ariana right now.
Could you explain what that is exactly? And
Well,
where,
just
and
like
where it was shared?
Just like the ones that you shared, those two links, it was a third, more recent link.
I know, but where's that link attached to? Is it HHFDC's website?
I'm not sure.
The two links we provided in the board packet was the 2023 report to the legislator and 2024 report to the legislator. Are those the two links you're talking about?
Yeah, those are
Commissioner?
the two that you guys provided, and then there's a fourth report based on the October meeting, 2024. The group meeting agenda. Well, maybe it's just an agenda. Oh, perhaps it's just an agenda.
So you didn't review it? You didn't review it so that you know what it says?
I reviewed it, but perhaps it is an agenda and not a report after the fact. But anyway, it's a more updated.
Yeah, I contacted HHFDC as one of the co-chairs and asked for the summary minutes if they
Yeah.
had them, and they did
And that's
not.
what they gave you.
No, they didn't have them.
Yeah. So I guess I only had one question about it. Let me find it here. I believe I highlighted it. Hold on. I know it was mentioned a couple of times in those two reports that, sorry. So the stakeholders selected 5 top areas, right? And that's what you were talking about, the infrastructure being the main one. Sorry, I was just trying to find this one that talked about land use. It said basically that the land use discussion was complicated, and so it almost, state land use district amendments. There are different perspectives among stakeholders regarding rule changes to the land use boundary amendment process. This is a complex issue which will require further research and discussion at a future time. So I think both reports had that comment, and I was just curious if you wanted to speak to that at all.
It's very tactful language to indicate that there was robust discussion about those issues and that there was no consensus.
So there were specifics discussed that the stakeholders did not agree on? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
I was just curious kind of what that looked like.
What did it look like? It looked like a kind of freewheeling discussion about land use, regulatory system, both at the state and county level. Many of the participants didn't understand who did what level of government did what. And so some of that was an opportunity for me to explain, This is what the Land Use Commission does. This is what the Land Use Commission does not do. This is what the county level handles. So again, there was discussion, there was no consensus. People have different opinions.
Right.
I
I guess I'm trying to get a sense as to whether LUC's staff participation in these groups, if you're finding that it's helpful, is it collaborative? Are there positive outcomes as they relate to us?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, the LUC is a regulatory body. We don't set policy. When we get into discussions with other agencies who do go about setting policy, okay, we're there mainly to inform. When they have questions about, oh, okay, how does this work? How is this set up? We're able to explain the district boundary amendment process proceeds in this fashion. So when they're trying to identify, okay, where can we insert ourselves as government agencies to make zoning more flexible, make the process move quicker, we can at least explain, here's our process. Here's how long it takes. Here's what our legal guidelines are, like at the district boundary amendment process. We often hear, it takes 10 years. And we are there to be able to explain, by law, our process is limited. We have to make our decision within 365 days. And when we go back and we take a look at our history of decisions, the majority, 80, 90% of those decisions occur within 6 months. So when someone talks about, oh, it took 10 years, we have to ask, okay, can you explain, lay it out for us? Where did it take 10 years? Because your district boundary amendment was done within 1 year time frame. So where are the other 9 years in your process? And oftentimes that's what we're there to explain. Here's our process. Special permits, 90 days. 201H, 45 days. Those are our legal boundaries within which what we have to make a decision. So if somebody is taking more than 45 days, that isn't taking place in front of the Land Use Commission. That's taking place somewhere else. So it helps when we get in those discussions, they can start identifying, okay, well, where is that longer time lag occurring? What processes are those? How can we get involved in those processes? And those are discussions for folks who are trying to get into the policy side of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, final round of public testimony on this topic. Anybody want to comment, Ms. Kwan?
Seeing none, Chair.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next agenda item. Thank you, very much, Mr. Derrickson. Appreciate your presentation. Agenda item 8F is an update on LUC staff vacancies. We already talked about this a little bit, but let me turn it over. Is there any public testimony, specifically written testimony on this topic that's been received?
No, Mr. Chair.
Is there anybody, members of the public, who wish to testify on this?
If anyone would like to provide oral testimony on the Zoom, please use the Q&A feature now. Seeing none, Chair.
Thank you. We'll proceed. Let me call on the executive officer to proceed with the presentation on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We actually have 2 vacant positions that we're desperately trying to fill. One of them is a secretary, well, they now call it administrative assistant 2 position. and the other is a planner 5 position. With regard to the planner 5 position, we have been requesting we have to request a list of candidates from the Department of Human Resource Development. We've been requesting a list on that since we've had since June or June, yeah. And we have not received, we just received the first list and had 3 people on it. We're scheduling interviews for that. We just finally received a list for Secretary 2, Administrative Assistant 2's position. A couple of weeks ago, it had 24 people on it. Only 4 of those people are interested in interviewing with us, and then 3 of them subsequently backed out. We had 1 interview, we offered her the position and she declined it. So that's the place that we're in.
So that assistant would be an assistant to
Ariana,
Ariana. So she's
she's doing 2 people's work right now.
you're doing 2 people's work.
I'm doing 2 jobs right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything additional?
Oh, I have nothing further to report on that matter.
Okay, commissioners, any questions for Mr. Orendanker on staff vacancies? Commissioner Miyasoto?
No, I'm not on vacancies, I'm sorry.
All right, so, yeah, we're going to lunch pretty soon. Ms. Quanon, last round of public testimony. Anybody there?
Seeing none, Chair.
Thank you very much. That concludes this agenda item. I'll call on anybody who wants to speak, but I just wanted to inform that I have personally requested an agenda item at the next meeting on January 22nd related to, and I'm going to use the acronym PIGS because we understood what that turns out to be. And I'd like that to be presented. I don't know if you can, I think it's separate discussion from the legislative update, which will be on there. And I'd like it to be in advance of that legislative update.
I'm drafting the agenda now.
Thank you. So that's just an FYI. So at this time, before I adjourn, I give the opportunity for commissioners to comment or anything they want to say.
Thank you. In light of the discussion that we had earlier, could I, or maybe the commission receive contact information for other commissioners, as it was kind of suggested to have a more access for conversations?
I think that's a great, I think in terms of
Can you repeat that, please? I couldn't hear what he said.
he wants to have contact information among commissioners and staff. So, because what we get are a lot of BCCs and we don't know necessarily, right? So let the request, and I'll emphasize the request to staff. Can you provide us an information contact list that has the names, email IDs, and do you want phone numbers as well?
Yes, thank you.
We do that?
Melissa, is that a sunshine issue at all or no? I could provide them all contact info.
I think that's okay, so long as, everyone still heeds the advice previously given.
So like no group chats, guys.
Yeah, no group chats. Any one of us.
As
would
that,
be-
no group chats about anything that's going to come before the commission or that's currently before the
Yeah, but
commission.
anybody
But you are
who's on-
welcome to, meet each other and talk about your families or whatever.
Okay, I could prepare that and give that to the commissioners.
Is that a discussion item? So in other words, if I want to speak or email one other commissioner about an agendized item, I can do that or not.
Yes, you can.
And anybody else can talk to anybody else one-on-one.
Yes, however, you cannot have serial communication. So you cannot call every commissioner one by one and have the same message.
Correct.
Yes.
How about, I give another hypothetical. I send Commissioner Lee, he and I have an exchange, and then he wants to share that, the fruit of that discussion with another commissioner. Can you do that in his own words?
I think that starts to get hairy, like a serial communication, but if there are questions about those types of things, we would welcome you contacting us, your deputy's attorney general, just to go over it before you make those communications.
Also, we should include your contact information as well then.
You can, yes.
Yeah.
If you must.
Okay, final call for comments, questions, and suggestions from commissioners for this 2-day session. Hearing none, I'm adjourning this meeting. Thank you very much.